if you don't feel good about the business you do, you shouldn't be doing it. And so if you don't feel comfortable asking people for reviews or actually operating this business in an ethical way, then you shouldn't be in this business. I think
All right, welcome everybody. We got another episode today where it's just Mason and I talking through what we're actually doing in our business, specifically pertaining to direct-to-seller marketing. Before we started recording, we probably should have just started recording sooner, as per always, but we were talking about how busy we are right now, and Mason compared it to, like the spring and summer rush in Colorado on both the buyer and seller end. And for me, the amount of inbound leads we're getting right now is crazy. And so we're going to talk quite a bit about direct-to-seller marketing today. Mason.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good conversation. Like, one of the reasons I almost wanted to delay recording this podcast was because of leads that have resulted from both targeted and organic direct-to-seller marketing. And I'll make, $80,000 off of these two leads that I got, that we're closing on the listings of today, essentially. And it's all been through, years of work, obviously, and creating a track record, but a few strategies that we'll talk about today that I think you can apply in your business, whether you are an investor or an agent or just any business owner, that I think is really, really effective, because Dan and I are almost too busy to record podcasts some days because we're getting so many leads.
Yeah, man, I haven't been posting on social media at all. The amount of real sellers we're getting, I'd say that's the big difference. It's not that we are getting so many more total leads. We are getting more than we have for a while, but it's like every lead is at least reasonable at most. We're just not dealing with I want 2x market value, or just the super combative people. We get a few of them here and there. But in the last 4-ish months, we have gotten so many sellers that are maybe a little higher than we can pay. We don't always make an agreement, but reasonable, actually ready to sell right now. And it just keeps on coming. So we're just going to keep pushing through the end of the year, when I think a lot of people are pulling back right now.
Well, I think it's directly correlated with like the normalcy of the market we're finally experiencing.
Yeah.
I know everyone else is like, and the market's so hard, and the market's hard, but the market was always hard. We had a very easy stint for a little while. And now it's back to like, it's only the best that are staying alive. And Pareto principle, that 20% are operating 80% of the deals. And I feel like, buyers' expectations have been, kind of settled. A lot of the brokers' expectations have been settled. The sellers, it's still catching up in general. But I feel like we're finally seeing a market shift of, okay, I can't get 2020 prices or 2021 prices anymore. Interest rates have ticked down a little bit, so you're able to like create reason of, from the acquisition side, we're able to do it. And then on the listing side of like having conversations of like, you're not going to get what your neighbor got 4 years ago. It's just not going to happen. So let's dive into it, Dan. What do you feel like marketing channel wise on the direct to seller bit is working really, really well?
Mail. And there's 3 parts to this. There's the copy on the mailer. Well, there's actually 4. There's the data. There's the marketing copy on the mailer. There's the salesperson that's talking to these inbound leads. And then there's the back end of the online presence. And it is the refining of all 4 of those things. 3 out of 4 of them more than data is the one we haven't changed that much. That has made all the difference. So first and foremost, we have really refined who our avatar is and customized our mail very clearly. And it's not changed. It's just we've gotten better at targeting them. And all verbiage about quick cash close or paying closing costs, all that's gone. It is entirely focused on the fact that we are experts in their market. We know their market. We've done deals down the street. We're doing new construction, subdivides. We're solving title issues. And we've created an online presence with lots of good reviews, Facebook posts showing these things, examples on our website where these sellers are getting these letters. They're looking us up. They're seeing great reviews. They're seeing builds we're doing. And then they're talking to a really competent salesperson who knows the area and can speak confidently. And the combination of really those 3 things, because our data hasn't changed that much, has just made all the difference. And ultimately, it just comes down to understanding the seller.
Well, and so if you were to kind of typecast that demographic that you're having these great conversations with, and make it a tangible, list that people can pull from whatever their data provider is it the standard out of state, out of owner, 10 plus years of ownership? Is it local people? Who are these people that you're actually having these meaningful conversations with?
They're out of state, out of county, at least out of county. Many of them are in the same state, but in a different area. They've owned it a long time, and they're probably between 45 and 80, and they're not poor. Very rarely are they distressed financially. They aren't unsophisticated most of the time. I mean, we are buying a bunch right now from investors. They bought it a long time ago. A lot of them on tax deed. A few of them, they inherited it from their parents. And they know they're selling it at a crazy deal. I was telling you about that mobile home park lot that we got. And the original conversation with my acquisition guy is kind of funny because he goes, look, I got this thing in a bankruptcy for $0. I don't want to totally give it away. I think we can do, I forget the number he initially threw out. He's like, let me just double check and make sure I'm not giving it to you at pennies on the dollar. But I think we can make a deal. We're under contract at 190. That thing's worth like 400 to 500 on the market. And he knows he's giving it away at a good deal. And so at the risk of getting too off on a tangent here, they're often sophisticated. They got it at nothing. They bought it a long time ago. They don't care about it. It's kind of meaningless in their mind. There's no emotional connection, whether they inherited it or got it at tax auction. And they just want to cash out and they don't want to deal with it.
So the objection that everyone listening is going to come up with is, well, Dan, if they're so sophisticated, why would they sell it to you at what amounts to be at least quarters on the dollar, as versus going and listing it with a realtor or listing it themselves? So what, like, specifically on the sales technique side are your acquisition managers like using to have those conversations to make it so? Because I know the market's not so or there's not such limited competition that like they're just handing you these deals without even trying. There's got to be some skill involved.
Yeah, there's a mix of several things, and it goes back to what I said about the avatar. These people have already decided they don't want to deal with realtors. They don't want to do what they need to do to sell it on the market, and they just want to liquidate it. So they've already made that decision in their head, and so now they're just looking for who they think is the best amongst the wholesale land companies, okay? And so when they see, again, our online presence, we have good marketing copy, and then they talk to the acquisition guys who are talking about deals we did down the street. They use the right verbiage. They're not saying, hey, can I buy your raw vacant land in X county in South Carolina? They don't sound like they have no clue what they're talking about. They talk the language, right? So when we're talking to people in the South, we're always, oh, you're tracked, right? Well, that's a little buzzword. That's what everyone says. It makes you sound like you know what you're talking about. We talk about the due diligence we're going to do from perk tests. I mean, it depends on the specific lot. From perk tests to surveys, maybe talk about the soil type. I just have my guys throw a lot of little buzzwords out that show that we've done this before. We know what we're doing and we can close. And so to answer kind of the other part of your question, well, there's a lot of work involved. So this mobile home lot has a bunch of old abandoned mobile homes on it. So we have to deal with the title, deal with removing them, deal with all kinds of crap. And so that's part of why, that one in particular, he did not want to deal with that. He made that so clear. It's like, if I want to sell this on market, I'm going to have to go deal with finding the titles and removing these and blah, blah, blah. Again, he got it just as part of a bankruptcy of someone that owed him money. So he's like, look, if I can get 190 grand out of this and just be done with it, I'm fine. And so that's why it's the same reason when I go buy a new car, I'm just going to trade in my car, even though they're going to flip it.
Are you finally going to trade in your card in?
Maybe. I don't know. It's not particularly important. I wouldn't want to buy a Toyota that the engine dies in like 2 miles. So,
hey, I got a free one. It's fine. And you look very cute in your little white Subaru, even though you don't live in Colorado anymore. But I think one thing, we had kind of in our notes to talk about this towards the end of the show, but I think it's important to talk about now, and we'll circle back to some of the more tactics, but it really is the compounding effect of time in the market and doing actual deals within a specific market that allows you to do more deals. So we recognize the first one is always the hardest. it's so hard to get that first one. But as soon as you start getting data points that you can speak towards in your conversations that you're having with sellers, then you're going to come across so much more sophisticated and really understand, look like you know what you're doing, even if you don't fully know what you're doing. Where, I mean, that's kind of what I was talking about right at the beginning at the intro of the show, where, as a broker, I'm still doing land flips. And I'll talk about like the way we got this one huge land flip that we're closing on Monday. But the two listings that I got today, one of them came from organic lead, and she kept seeing my name pop up in Colorado Springs related to land, even though it's a house. It's on acreage and stuff like that. So she wanted a land focused person, but she kept seeing my name pop up doing active deals in the community. And that's what caused her to reach out. So we'll dive deep into organic and how to actually create those leads. But the second one was, she had seen that I sold the property across the street from her. And beyond that, she got a postcard from me, multiple postcards from me. One, which was one of the most successful campaigns that I did, which is the, like, are you tired of lowball offers on your land? Call us, we'll do an evaluation, see what we can get for you. And the other one she got was whenever I listed the neighbor's property, I sent mail to the 500 closest people around. And so she had like 3 of my postcards, gave me a call, and she's like, I don't want to work with anyone else. I've never met this person face to face. I've had one hour of phone calls with her over the past few days. And we're going to list her property at $850,000, which 3% commission is like, it's a decent chunk of change right there of, that's like almost $30,000 that we'll make on this deal. And that only happened because I'm actively doing deals. So I think, something that Dan mentioned, that just being able to have the technical jargon of understanding the product that you're working. So if it's land or houses, like you need to be able to say, okay, well, this land is more valuable than that land because, the way the mountains are facing, you're going to have unobstructed views of Pikes Peak here versus you're on a hill looking into another hill. Or, the soils in this area are generally, running dry, or they're super silty, or there's a lot of clay, or whatever it is. If you really understand your product, then even if you haven't done a deal, you'll be able to get that effect of the compounding effect of having just at least spent a lot of time researching and studying and understanding like the specifics of the market, rather than just looking at comparable sales and listing prices, which is where I feel like a lot of people get held up.
Yeah. One thing I just have to pull out of everything you just said was that she had 3 or 4 mailers from you. And I think this is where so many people get it wrong, is they don't mail the same people repeatedly. If you haven't listened to our podcast with Justin Dawsey of Ballpoint Marketing, listen to that. Like, this is no different than any other type of marketing. You need to hit the same people over and over and over again if you want to get customers. Actually, that's part of what I want to talk about. We're getting repeat customers. So we'll hit on that in a minute, sellers. But Mason, give us a little bit more on what has been working for you direct to seller. All right, you mailed near a listing you just got. You did the tired of lowball offers mailer. What else has been working for you?
Man, those handwritten mailers, I'm like too busy to respond to the amount of leads that I'm actually getting from these handwritten mailers. We sent out last week about 1,900 mailers, and I'm closing in on 40 calls from this mailing. Of course, all of those are not leads. Some of it's bad data, and specifically it's mineral rights on properties that we were looking for surface rights on. So that was like a weird prop stream error that happened. But I'm on a deal that I'm doing right now. I'm able to refer these mineral people to this other person that I'm buying the surface rights from. So it's creating like a really mutually beneficial relationship. But the handwritten mailers, I'm going to put every property. I'm going to spend the next probably few weeks targeting every single piece of land in all of the states that I'm actively doing business in and that my clients are doing business in, to get a really, really solid list. And then I'm going to drop a campaign that lasts for the next year or two with these handwritten mailers. I mean, it's the best response I've ever had from anything. It's really crazy to see. And I think being able to put them on a cycle, have different types of letters show up over and over again will work really effectively. And I think it's regardless of, these were broker targeted. rather than, or, listing targeted rather than acquisitions targeted. But regardless of how you're doing deals and how they're coming into your pipeline, the most important thing is just having conversations where if you can get them on the phone and, put them in your system, assuming they tell you, they don't tell you never contact me again, which I've only one of 40 said, don't contact me again. We've owned this farm for 200 years. Don't send us mail anymore. Everyone else is like, this is what I want. And I'm like, that's double market price. I can't even list it for you because your head's in the clouds right now. But I'm going to put them on a marketing iteration that is going to last for years. So whenever they are ready to sell at a reasonable price, that's another, several $100,000 in commission that we'll be able to collect over the years.
Yeah, that's another important thing, is not throwing away prime leads unless they're, really hostile or combative or, threatening to sue you or whatever. We had a lead recently in North Carolina, one of the areas we've done business. It was 100 acres, like 40 of it was a solar farm. The rest of it was a timber farm. And the guy was a little high, but not unreasonable, super friendly. So we are absolutely going to keep him in our system. We're going to keep marketing to him. And you just never know. I can't tell you how many times we've marketed to an area, got a bunch of leads we couldn't buy, prices went up. 3 years later, we scrubbed through, find those, and buy some of them. I mean, we've done that over and over and over again. And so for something like 100 acres in North Carolina, go on any data provider right now and do 100 plus acre lots in North Carolina. There aren't that many. So for those sorts of properties, that's on our, it's like the old first day for a salesperson. You create your hot 100, your hot sheet of 100 clients you want. And then those people you target forever. Like, you should have that for your business. In the place where you're really an expert doing business consistently, there should be a class of lead that you follow up with pretty much forever until you buy it.
Yeah. And I think beyond like the exact asset class, I think the portfolio owners are someone that you always want to target and kind of have in your hot lead list, where you have to think about universal language that everyone, regardless of what business they're in, will understand. And bulk pricing discount is something that most people will understand. That's why people shop at Costco and Walmart, where you're buying 1,000 trash bags for the same price that it costs for 100 trash bags at the grocery store. But it's the same thing with land. There's people that have been purchasing and scooping up, not ideal pieces of land, but like okay pieces of land for generations potentially. And they might own 50 or 100 parcels, where it's like, if you can get it at 10 cents on the dollar, then you have to have the capital, obviously, to be able to, actually acquire everything like that. But I mean, those are some of the prime leads that we're talking about that you should always be marketing to for the rest of time. And they're also most likely going to respond to you too. I feel like we get a pretty high response rate from our portfolio people that we're contacting.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times those people are they're easier to talk to. They're more sophisticated and less emotional about it. We have a guy, we bought one lot from him 2 weeks ago. Now we're buying another one from him. He owns like another 5 or 6. And so even if you can't buy the whole portfolio at once you establish a rapport with people, you can buy a bunch of lots from them at great prices. And he bought all of them on tax lien a long time ago. So the title's already been quieted just because they're past the statute of limitations, and they're all great deals. So I think, that's an underappreciated method, is going after those portfolio owners, especially now, because there's just so many people like that guy who are boomers. Their kids don't want it. Their kids don't know anything or want anything to do with land. And they're just looking for someone to sell to ultimately. So that's a new SOP for us, is checking on PropStream if any of the people we're talking to have other properties.
Yeah, no, that right there is a follow-up question that everyone seems to forget to ask, but it goes back to the compounding effect that we mentioned. I mean, it's essentially a referral business where there was no communication, but one of the most common methods of getting more business is through referrals. And if you do a good job with them, they're going to tell people about, tell their friends about you. And so make sure to force that question, force that follow-up. But, to kind of summarize where we're at right now in the conversation about mail, you need to have good data targeting the actual property and the actual property owners, the specific avatar of property owner that is going to be most likely to yield you the best return, which sometimes it's It's either A, just the asset class. You know exactly like whether it's an infill lot in a particular subdivision that's a honey hole for you, or really large acreage that you're able to subdivide. Those are great people to have on your marketing list for the rest of time, because there's only so many of them. And then two, it's also the portfolio owners that own a tremendous amount of land where you have to look at your return on ad spend and make sure that you're using the best mailers possible. What we're seeing a lot of great responses on, obviously the postcards that are very specific and very targeted, whether it's, my realtor one of tired of lowball offers on your land, let's get you market price, or Dan's, hey, we just bought the lot 2 doors down from yours, we're interested in your land. Those ones are really effective. And then also the handwritten mailers specifically from Ballpoint Marketing have been really, really effective for us. But Dan, what else are we doing direct to seller marketing wise that's tried and true and boring?
Well, cold calling has continued to work, and we've especially had success recently calling areas where we really know what we're talking about because we've done a lot of business. So there's a number of subdivisions in North Carolina that we've been in for a long time, and we could reference a bunch of streets we've bought on, and my guys just have a lot of confidence in calling those because they've closed so many deals there. And so that's helped layer in a few more deals here and there. But we've been cold calling for like 4.5 years, and it's always gotten us deals, sometimes more, sometimes less. It's always up and down, just like mail, but really nothing's changed. We keep calling people that own land, and we call them again and again. I've referenced on this show several times in the last quarter about a neighborhood in North Carolina where we flipped like 10 or 12 lots in a few months because it skyrocketed in price. It was a nice little honey hole. And I think we mailed it 5 times, called it like 5 to 10 times, all within that time frame. And we just kept getting additional lots. So,
well, and out of curiosity, you're better at this than I am. With your like iteration protocol of how many times you're mailing or calling these people, are you on a cadence that's specific, or are you just like, I'm going to keep hitting these people until we I don't know, it just stops?
Somewhere in the middle. I have a tracker. I've actually, my girlfriend showed me this, ClickUp, where I have all of the states that we want to hit over and over again. Then they're broken down into some of the prime areas. So like X County, North Carolina, and that's broken down into a bunch of different areas. And then, these counties in Colorado, anything over X acreage. And then I track in there, postcard, 2 to 4 months later, letter, 2 to 4 months later, different toned postcards. Like if my first postcard is really serious and then I send a letter, then the second postcard might be a little more fun. And so we're hitting these 2 to 4 times a year, depending. And so that's what I have been doing. And we're always experimenting with new areas as well. But, I referenced the interview we did with Justin Dawsey recently. Plus, I had my experience just recently hitting one area just over and over again and it continuing to produce. And so I'm going to try that with some of these really high priority leads. We're going to just nail them like every month and see what happens. So to be determined.
When I feel like in Gary Keller in The Millionaire Real Estate Agent, he talks about like you need to touch your clients. It's either 12, it's somewhere in between 12 and 30 times a year, that you should be essentially hitting them like twice a month. And that's, you hear about that and you hear about the margins that we do in this on the investment side of this business. And people are like, yeah, I market to them once a year, maybe. Or I once, and if they don't respond, then I'm moving on to a different market. It's like, no one knows who you are. I don't even know how many postcards I would have to get to give someone business. Like, I think the only thing I've ever used postcards for is like whenever it's like a new oil change place opening and it's like, come get your oil change for like $25 or something like that. And so why should they respond to your postcard? And eventually you create a brand presence that makes it so where they're not going to typically associate one letter with another unless you've sent them like 20 letters. And I feel like you've experienced that with like house wholesalers in Colorado Springs. Like it's like purple something. Yeah. So I see that signs everywhere. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like that's what we need to get into our heads of. We are not marketing enough. Of if you are not touching the same people multiple times a year, they're not going to be the ones that you're not going to be the person that they call whenever they're actually ready to sell. It's going to be whoever got lucky on that one particular day, as versus, okay, I created a recognition that Front Range Land is the company that I'm going to call whenever we are actually ready to sell. They're the ones that are actively still in business, as versus these other people that send me one card and I threw it away.
Yeah, and just thinking about that too, because this is something I've thought about. In any of these busy markets, these sellers are already getting multiple mailers a week, and you're still going to send your first mailer there. So why do you think that that first mailer is any more effective than the second or third when they're already getting a dozen plus a week in a lot of the Carolinas and Florida? It's not. This is all made up in your head. It's just a matter of when they're ready. Who do they think of? And so who did they get a mailer from recently that stuck in their head, So yeah, I think that's been a big change in my mind too, is narrowing down and not trying as many new places and just hitting the same places over and over and over again. And the reason in my last little rant I referenced the Justin Dawsey episode is because he really drove that home. So yeah, I agree.
Well, and I feel like it continues us along the conversation of how we're actually able to get leads through this compounding effect of, whether it's calling a bunch and them getting to know you, assuming they don't cuss you out, and, you take them off your list and sending them a bunch of mail over and over and over again. The idea of getting what amounts to be organic leads, which can come from content creation, like this podcast that Dan and I are doing. I have had sellers reach out to me from this podcast and buyers reach out to me from this podcast, which is pretty cool. Or our websites or Google reviews and stuff like that, it all adds into the flavor that you need to create within your brand to actually be someone reputable. So I think, Dan, you've done a really good job, kind of building your website and building the reviews that are leading to more deals. That are you getting any leads on the acquisition side of things where it's, hey, your name came up whenever I was looking for people to sell my land to, or has it more been, you sent me a letter, you called me, and then I looked you up and now I want to do business with you?
Mostly number two. We did get an organic lead for a house in Black Forest, like a house that he rehabbed in Black Forest. I don't know what he Googled exactly, but we popped up on Google for him. So that was cool to hear. But yeah, it's very much more of number two, where they get the postcard or the call or whatever, and then they think, I'm going to check these people out. They look online, they see properties we're building, they see subdivides we're doing, they see little examples of title issues we fixed, and then they say, okay, I'm going to go with these people.
Yeah, and that right there, regardless of and when I say organic, I mean, we're not paying for advertisements for it. Neither of us are paying for search engine optimization or running targeted ads on social media or anything like that for either of our businesses. At least at this point, I did try it for a little while. And I think it would work really well from a nationwide approach, but the ads aren't sophisticated enough from an acquisition standpoint to be able to actually target, I want to acquire land in this particular area or this community. It's just not how ads work for social media, at least at this point, or to my understanding. And if you know better, feel free to reach out and correct me. But I feel like for me, this also ties into the name of your company. Mm-hmm. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day if you were DH Investments or something like that. But I do think, my DBA is Colorado Land Acquisition Services, which is optimized for SEO kind of automatically just by the name. And that's how we've gotten some organic leads. Some leads have been for buyer clients, some have been for seller clients, and some have been, kind of, lots of scams too. So be cautious of that. We do get a lot of scam leads as well. But I mean, this $1.85 million listing that I got that was organic, purely organic. She looked up, sell my house and land, Colorado, and I popped up. And being able to have a website that is professional and content throughout the internet of pretty okay with everything that you see of me on the internet, whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook. I'm not afraid to admit that, this is what I do. I'm an investor and a realtor and everything like that. And my clients see that and they respect it. And it's created a tremendous amount of business for us. So I think Dan, you've got a good process for like collecting reviews
Mm-hmm.
after you do business. And I feel like a lot of people might be confused at that of, I think there's a lot of self-righteous people that are investors that are like, we are helping people. We are helping solve people's problems. And you're talking about these sophisticated investors that bought this land as an investment that you're purchasing at less than market value. Like, what do the reviews look like from those people?
Usually it's just, did what they said they're going to do, trustworthy. And it is a mix because sometimes we get those unsophisticated people that inherited it or they just bought forever ago and they don't want it. Um, but they tend to have similar motivations. It's just they're a little more scared. Um, but it's been a mix of, closed when they said they would, did what they said they would do, great to work with. And we got one recently. They said I got a lot of scammy inquiries to buy my land, and Front Range land was great. They did what they said they were going to do. They closed. We helped her negotiate a lien, you know. So it also, to your point about the service thing, it varies. There's some where we do really provide a service. There's been a few where there's been complex legal issues to fix the title that we've been able to do, and that is more of a service, them not even come out of pocket, like quiet title. We closed a Florida lot that it took 9 months and $6,000. So for that guy, that was a great service. He left us a nice review. So it's a mix because there's also some people that it's just pawn shop for land, as Mason likes to say. Usually the reviews focus on legitimacy and actually doing what we said we'd do, because so often I think the biggest fear in all these sellers' mind is that these companies aren't legitimate that are sending us postcards.
Yeah. And that right there is huge. And I think it's important to remember, like, if you don't feel good about the business you do, you shouldn't be doing it. And so if you don't feel comfortable asking people for reviews or actually operating this business in an ethical way, then you shouldn't be in this business. I think transparency has gotten us a lot more deals than most people, and being able to really show like, hey, we're a legitimate operator. This is what we do. This is how we do it. This is how we make money. Like, don't be afraid to say this is how we make money. It's like not a bad negotiating tactic to use. Because the thing is, if they're terrified of you making money, then they're not going to be your customer anyways, regardless of what service or product you're providing or offering, by any means. But I do feel like being able to have a good, sophisticated website with the name of a brand that, will draw people towards it, having reviews, and then just having your name out there in general and I know that's a lot harder to do before you've done any transactions, but you can create a nice professional website and landing page and then start from the beginning, put those deals on, put a portfolio on. I think that's going to serve you so well in the long run, because if you turn into someone like me that has done hundreds of deals, but is lazy, then it makes it a big pain whenever you get that itch to be like, okay, I need to add this portfolio of deals onto my website to show people that I'm really out and about and doing stuff. But yeah, Dan, where do we want to take it from here? Going on to like what's really just killing it in the lead generation game on the direct to seller marketing, that we're getting more deals from.
A couple more things I want to say on that mail and the data. I looked through like 100 deals in arrears, and I have never bought from a corporation. So we don't really market to, and by corporation, just to be clear, I mean, INC. I'm not including LLCs. We bought from plenty of LLCs, not plenty, but some. We've bought from the Boy Scouts. We bought from the Pope of the Coptic Church in Egypt. We bought from Shriners Children's Hospital, but we've still never bought from a corporation. So I have been pretty much removing those, and that's helped. And when we're going somewhere that there's a lot of data, I pretty much always have been starting with just individuals and trust owners only. And I really think that has helped, because there's just so many users that are actually using it for their business. When you include businesses, whether they're parking equipment or telephone companies with their polls there, whatever. So that has helped, I think, get better leads, better data, and less waste. But yeah, man, I mean, that's really the gist of it. But I can't overemphasize the importance of making your mail really specific, taking the time to do that. Don't be lazy. I mean, go ahead, be lazy and let us take all the deals. And building that back end online. So like on our website, I put a current project section with here's X County quiet title. Here's getting access for our seller. Here's negotiating an HOA lien for our seller. Here's a new construction project. And people just love that because it's just, oh, okay, these are real examples. This is a real company. Then they see the reviews, they see pictures on Facebook of the builds we're doing, and all that adds up to really give them a sense of, all right, this is somebody I can do business with. And so I think even more than having revamped all my mailers this year, I think what we've done online, because everyone Googles you after they get the postcard, has made a massive difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head there. And I feel like just being a legitimate operator is what's going to make, that compounding effect occur. And if you haven't gotten your first deal, like it might be better to go work for someone and get a few deals under your belt before you go off on your own. Because it's the only way to create a track record is by creating one. And that has to start with one step. And you don't need all this stuff. You don't need all of these check boxes on your resume to be able to operate. Like all of us started from zero. But it does make it really, really helpful to get more and more and more. So I think, if you are on your own, just make sure if the data points of the market that you're actually operating in are good, stay in there until you get a deal. Don't start bouncing around over and over and over again because you're never going to actually get one. And I see that happen so often. And don't be afraid to have a nice website. Don't be afraid to ask for reviews, and don't be afraid to post on social media. I think with some of the listings that we're doing, we hope to get viral at one point on one of them just to get enough eyeballs on it I think posting on social media will get me deals, but more people that look at something, the more likely something's to come from it. So I think, for people that are great at social media, maybe in other aspects of their life, take those skills and apply them to business. It can be really, really beneficial.
Yeah, I think that was a good summary. One more thing I wanted to say on data and market selection that pertains to this whole conversation is making sure you're looking at qualitative factors too. And this is hard to quantify, which obviously in the word, these are not quantifiable factors, but finding good agents, or maybe, we're in X market and we have a good agent and he or she recommends an area that you might not have ever thought of based on any sort of quantitative factor, but that expert knows there's demand there, has really served us. And we've found these more by kind of just spraying mailers and then learning as we go. But we got a lead today in North Carolina in an area I'd never even heard of. And I looked at all the sales comps and they all went pending in, I'm not kidding, 1 to 2 days. Every single one of them that didn't have something wrong with it. And there's nothing listed. And we found a number of little areas like this. And if you're going on a lot of the commonly used sites and just looking for the heat map of the busiest area, you're never going to find these areas. And I think a lot of those tools just take you to the same conclusion that everyone else is already making. And that's how you end up wasting thousands of dollars in, Lee County, Florida, or Brevard County, or one of those areas that's just an endless clusterfuck. And so, again, it's hard for me to give great means of finding these areas other than just getting out there, doing business and talking to people. But a lot of off the radar markets are really in demand, but it's hard to find that from any sort of quantitative metric. So take that for what you will.
Yeah, no, that really, really is beneficial advice right there. So I don't think we have much more. I feel like if you can follow some of the tangible advice we gave in this episode, make it your own, you're going to be able to flood your inbox with leads from a few of the most simple and tried and true ways to do direct seller marketing. So everyone, this is Mason McDonald and Dan Hammerkost with the Big Picture Blueprint, signing off.